I heard there was this pastor who was telling us an account. At the end of a service, this man came up to him and said, "Pastor, I need you to pray for my hearing." So the pastor, you know, this was a charismatic church, he laid hands on him, began to pray, and was really praying up a storm that his ear would be opened, that his hearing would be restored, and everything would be fine. He finished. He looked at the young man, he said, "Can you hear any better?" He said, "Pastor, there was nothing wrong with my ear. It's my hearing next week in court I want you to pray for." I think there's a disconnect between what we're hearing in Washington in terms of what the politicians are understanding on health care and what Americans are saying. I mean, as we saw this past weekend, the hundreds of thousands that turned out here in Washington, the people that are turning out in health care, our town hall meetings focused on health care around the country, are sending a very clear message. Even the USA Today, you may have seen the poll that they carried on the front page, Americans are not tracking with the president on health care. In fact, I thought one interesting statistic in the poll is that if a health care plan is passed, will it accomplish the president's goals? That is, to expand coverage to nearly all Americans without raising taxes on the middle class or lowering the quality of health care for those who have coverage. Only 38% said yes, that what the president's promising he can provide. 60% said no. The evidence is that the speech he gave did nothing to move the public on the health care reform. I used to be a police officer, so I would eat late at night in some of these greasy spoons. And the thing you would try to do is avoid looking in the kitchen when you go to the restroom. And what the president is doing is allowing people to look into the kitchen and begin looking at all of the ingredients that are going into this so-called health care reform plan. And it is very distasteful when people begin to, you know, some of the big points have been highlighted, but as he fights those and tries to say, oh, there's no death panels. There'll be no abortion funding in this bill, taxpayer funding of abortion. And then the New York Times comes out the next day and says, it is, Mr. President, it's in there. The more he tries to defend it, the more that's uncovered that he has to defend. So I think you're absolutely right, and that's why I think the more we have this discussion, the better off we are as conservatives, because people begin to see just how expansive, how unconstitutional really this reach is.
Do you have any ideas on how we can bring these notions of interrelatedness to the average American?
Well, I think it doesn't take a whole lot for people to connect the dots. When you look at the breakdown of the family, the government steps in to pick up the pieces, whether it's juvenile delinquency, whether it's welfare, whether it's the lack of educational attainment among youth, whether it's teenage pregnancy. All of this kind of goes back to the breakup of the family. Well, that results in higher taxes, more government programs, and so obviously if we can strengthen the family, we mitigate some of the consequences of that. The same being true, higher taxation on the family unit puts greater stress on the family unit, oftentimes forcing either a second job or maybe both parents to work, spending less time with the children. It also affects education. Maybe they don't have the resources to put their child into private education. So they are very clearly interrelated. Where we probably have the biggest challenge is bringing a greater awareness to families of the need for strong national defense. I think we've grown a little lax even since 9/11. That you know, nothing's happened, and so we kind of feel like we're secure. I think, you know, we need to realize that a strong defense attached to a strong foreign policy is very important for the country, for the family, and for businesses.
Do you have a message that you would like to share with the youth, the future voters of America? How can they help in our goals to get the government back to the size it should be?
I think they're very critical. I mean, I think we saw that in this last election, how the young voters, but I think what we need young voters to do is to take a break, take a moment, and really begin to study the claims of candidates and go beyond the rhetoric and look at the record. Don't just listen to what they say. Look what they've done, because past behavior is the best predictor of future performance. And I think the president took in a lot of youthful voters based on some very nice sounding promises, but I think we're now beginning to see the effects of that. By all means, get involved. We need the youth of today who are going to be tomorrow's leaders, and really today. I mean, look at the case with Acorn. Congress, last night the Senate voted to defund Acorn. That was done because a couple of younger Americans decided to get involved and pull back the curtain on what's going on there. Planned Parenthood, the same thing with Lila Rose. So you can make a difference today, and you'll make a big difference tomorrow if you stay involved.